is a very biased program. You know, it loves anything that's 100% HDI. It loves anything that is youth. More importantly, it loves anything that's women. But Palisa will get more into that program with you guys. In terms of the types of projects that we fund, inner city residential refurbishments, those are buildings which are already complete. You're purchasing the building and you're refurbing it. Any conversions, we fund conversions from offices, industrial to residential units. And I think the standout would be the greenfield developments where you have a clean site and you're building a new structure. Who qualifies to get funding from the GPF? And this is very important. Any company or SPV with a recognized legal form that provides rentals or delayed ownership schemes to households with a monthly income less than 18,000 and intends to develop more than 15 units. It's very important. The GPF funds the project and not necessarily the person. If you have a strong, viable project, the GPF will definitely look at it. I just want us to all listen carefully to the next 4 slides because it's going to be a distinguishing factor when you get the presentation on the EEPF. Like any funder or development finance institution, the GPF will limit its risk and exposure. And that's why we partner with other funders. In this case, we're a junior funder, so we gear up to 30% of the total project cost, depending on the discretionary assessment of the project needs. But we give up to 30% loans on the project cost. Typically, a typical funding structure would be a senior funder who will give up to 60%. Then us as a junior or mezzanine funder will give 30%. And then the balance of 10% would come from the developer or entrepreneur with the proposal. The investment term is almost standard across all development finance institutions. We look at 15 to 20 years, just depending on the project cash flows and obviously company BE levels. The investment pricing is a minimum of JIBA, which is our Johannesburg Interbank Agreed Rate, plus a margin. In fact, don't quote me on this, but GPF gives concessionary funding, which means that we don't give market-related interest rates. We actually are below market. In saying that, I think we probably give the lowest interest rates between the development finance institutions. I mean, I think I looked at JIBA and it's sitting at about 3.68%. So you can just do the maths from there. In terms of client contribution, as I've mentioned, the funding structure, the GPF requires the client or the developer to have at least 10% of the project cost, depending on project cash flows and BE levels. But like I said, these last 4 slides that I've just went through, just listen carefully to the EEPF programs and you will start to see the benefits of being on the EEPF program. In closing, I just thought that, you know, any aspiring developer needs to invest in their education. Like you said, project coordinator, and that's what we're here to share, knowledge share. So we're not going to act rosy and say that all projects are perfect. We have had a few hiccups in projects, and that's the risk you take as an entrepreneur and as a developer. So what we've realized as the GPF is that the projects fail because of either your professional team, your contractor, or you cannot manage the project once it's been completed. And here I thought, let me just get into a bit about, you know, we require that the developer must show us that they have the technical resources and capacity to successfully complete the project. And this takes into account having a core professional team, such as a project manager, registered QS, registered architect, and engineers. And I think you will get, the attendees will get a sense of that when Ms. Mosa Signolo does her presentation regarding the role of a QS in the project lifecycle. Equally important is the main contractor. And this is where some of our projects have been really let down. Appointing contractors without the relevant CIDB grading, or who do not have financial capacity. So it's important that we appoint contractors that are NHBRC registered, have the CIDB grading, have adequate capacity and capability, which is an important thing. Financial capacity being the most important thing. And obviously the ability to understand and develop a construction program, which is the basics. The last consideration is after your development has been complete, you need to effectively manage this development by getting a property manager on board who's going to take care of your tenanting. Probably the most crucial part. You can't generate an income if you don't have tenants. Rental collection. You cannot service your debt if you're not collecting rent. And one thing that most people leave out is operations and maintenance. If you do not maintain your building over time, it's going to create big problems in the long term. But in a nutshell, that is what the GPF does, the type of people we look at, and the type of products we offer. So I'll hand over to Palesa to give you an in-depth overview on the EEPF program and what it has to offer. And then I will just close out at the end. Thanks, Project Coordinator.
Good evening, should I say colleagues? Can you kindly just give me 2 minutes so I can share my screen? Thank you, Simpiwe. Okay. So basically my name is Palesa Tloan and I'm a project administrator at the Gauteng Partnership Fund. And I mostly specialize in deal structuring, and I will be presenting one of our funding programs, which is the Entrepreneur Empowerment Property Fund. Without further ado, so the Entrepreneur Empowerment Property Fund is an incubator program that's mainly focused on your new entrants. And obviously, like Simpiwe had highlighted, your 100% HDI owned companies, and it gives them the allowance to actually enter the affordable rental property market. Basically, for who can apply is if you have an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle, which is a registered company, basically, PTY Ltd, and you're willing to provide accommodation or affordable accommodation to people who have a monthly household income of 20,000, and you mainly intend to develop a minimum of 15 units. Basically, this program aims at obviously targeting your 100% Black-owned companies, as I had indicated. And with regards to our funding structure, the GPF can commit a maximum of 40% towards the total project cost if you're 100% obviously HDI, and it gives a loan term of 20 years. Our loan pricing varies, where you get JIBA plus 0.5% in the first 5 years, and it goes up every 5 years with 1.5%. As Simpiwe had indicated, JIBA is actually quite a low interest rate, and it's actually lower than prime. So basically our interest rates are very competitive. And then we've also got a standard in terms of the unit sizes that we require when someone submits a proposal to us. We look for a bachelor unit that's minimum 25 square meters, a 1 bed 30 square meters, a 2 bedroom 40 square meters, and a 3 bedroom 55 square meters. Another thing is within this program, at least 75% of the professionals must have a majority triple BEE. And if perhaps you require maximum 8 million from the GPF, we can be the only funder. You would not need a co-funder. Obviously, it depends on the project viability. And then within the EEPF, you basically contribute a minimum of 5%, which is also depending on the project viability. So if perhaps your project requires an equity contribution of more than 5%, then obviously you would increase your equity contribution. The EEPF program is so different because you get a 2 million interest-free loan within the loan that you apply for. So, which you only be able to service, you only start servicing the interest-free loan after 5 years. And if the GPF actually assists our clients from cradle to grave, where we will walk through with you from initial stage of your submission up until you finish construction. And in terms of our statistics of how our program is actually performing, to date we've had 45 active participants, of which 26 are males and 19 are females. And out of the 45, only 14 are considered youth. So this is actually a great platform for us, because now we will be able to attract more of the youth, so it can balance with our expectation in terms of youth empowerment. This following slide is just images of projects that we have completed. This is one project in Germiston. The client was male and it yielded 30 units, and another one is one in Wolmarans, which is around Braamfontein. It yielded 106 units, and it was developed by a female. When submitting an application to us, it is very important for the applicant to submit a comprehensive business plan, which indicates the proposed rentals, the unit typology, the unit sizes, and critically the number of units. Then you would need to submit your company registration documents, your tax clearance certificate, and all essential information that's pertaining to the project, such as your zoning information, your elemental cost estimates from a registered QS or a BOQ, your plans, a market study that specifically speaks to the sites, just so we know that you are not oversupplying within the area, a geotech report if you're going to build on vacant land and you're going to build from scratch, and a structural engineer's report if it's mainly for your conversions, where you'll be adding an additional structure onto an existing structure. And then you would need a professional team, and also submit to us the professional team company profiles, just so we can see the reputation of the companies you've selected as part of your professional team. You would need a copy of your latest audited financial statements, shareholder certificates, and shareholder agreements may be requested. And obviously at the moment, we do not have senior funding assistance, so you would also need to source your own senior funder. So anyone who wishes to submit an application to the GPF, you're more than welcome to contact myself, either Ms. Nonhlanhla Mbongo or Ms. Phetsile Khoza. We are the right people actually to submit. We assess your applications from onset, and you'll structure your deals as the process goes by. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Palesa. Now we will pass on to Musha Senyolo, who's going to share with us the importance of the quantity surveyor's role in a development. You can take over, Musha.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you to both Simpiwe and Palesa. Welcome to all the participants, and we do hope that this will be a very informative presentation from the QS's perspective. Now, the importance of the quantity surveyor stems from this whole discussion around development opportunities. Simpiwe did highlight the importance of having a strong core professional team in order to ensure that the development is a success from idealization up until completion and handover. Now, my presentation will be based on the role and importance of a quantity surveyor, as I'm speaking on behalf of the Association of Quantity Surveyors. Again, just giving an overview of where we are from a South African context in terms of development opportunities. South Africa has been listed as one of the leading emerging economies on the African continent. It is estimated that by the year 2050, more than 2/3 of the world's population will be living in urban areas. This will be facilitated through urban regeneration and the construction of mega cities in order to accommodate the influx of the population into metros within the South African context. The pre and post-COVID commitment and shift in governmental spending has indicated that infrastructure development is at the top of the list, and this now being a part of GPF's mandate. These pipeline project opportunities do include student accommodation, social housing, rental housing, independent water production, rail freight branch lines, embedded electricity generation, and municipal bulk infrastructure, among others. Why is this important? This is a clear indication that we have a lot of work that needs to be done. Development is not only a quick reach scheme, but it's also an indication of a growing economy, a growing and prosperous society, and that we, especially as the youth, have to be aware of and be ready to take control of these opportunities. Now, where the GPF really sets in is at the core of what makes a development. In these instances, it's access to finance. The mandate of the GPF is to mitigate and minimize this risk that forms a constraint to a lot of new entrepreneurs, and that is not being able to find the funding to put together a development. Simpiwe has also already touched on the types of developments that the GPF looks at, brownfields being one of them, and greenfields projects. Now, if we look primarily at the brownfields aspect, with all the urban renewal that is being done within cities by the remodeling, refitting, and redecoration of existing buildings, it gives better opportunities to startups in order to find their way within the development space. The GPF also serves to address the red tape generally faced by emerging entrepreneurs, especially those with a historically disadvantaged background. Now, within the South African context, especially based on the 2010 Soccer World Cup development that had to come up, we saw the process evolve to accommodate international best practice standards. The increased complexity in the scope and the type of people that were involved in these development appraisals changed over time. The development projects required the expertise of numerous role players, such as professional architects, quantity surveyors, engineers, land surveyors, town planners, builders, among others. The developmental appraisal is one of the key aspects of assessing the viability of a development project and thus its funding eligibility. It is one thing to have an idea in mind, but it is another to execute and make sure that the model works in order to meet certain objectives that would have been set out by the development owner. Financial feasibilities are a key component of any developmental appraisal. These involve the gathering of a range of diverse information on the cost and the investment value of the project. The profitability or lack thereof of a development scheme can be determined, thus an indication of the viability of the project. In this instance, where costs are the matter of fact, the quantity surveyor, as the built environment cost expert, carries the primary responsibility in the stage to ensure that all cost-related matters are correct and ensure that the development is viable at the end. The developmental appraisal is split up into two stages, the first being the initial viability and the second being the final viability. In the initial stage, a broad level tests whether the development is viable through the analysis of the following factors which do contribute to the cost and value of the product. The first being the highest and best use of the site. Once a site is identified, it has to be estimated that the value of the product envisaged would be higher than the cost of developing as a whole. This development cost would include the professional fees, the interest on the loans, and all other associated costs. Project costs would also be based on an order of magnitude estimate, and this is through looking at similar products within a minimal range of where the site is, and to see what these costs of these products would be should we decide to construct and go ahead with the development. The estimated profit margins of the product as well. With any investment, it is important to understand what the acceptable or the break-even profit margin would be for the developer and the financier as well, in order for them to recover the risk that they've put into the investment. This initial viability provides a general indication as to whether or not to proceed to the next stage of the development. And that would be to commission more detailed information, to put in more professional team members, collection of more data, possibly land acquisition, or even an offer to purchase, and also to understand the appropriate timing for which the development can take place. Now, the second step would be the detailed or the final viability. This stage now also involves a detailed level of cost factors, which would include detailed architectural information, which would allow us as the quantity surveyors to provide more detailed cost estimates. This would be in the form of an elemental estimate. The site accessibility, the terrain, or the age of the building, should it be a brownfields project. Environmental requirements, conservation costs would also go into putting together the overall cost estimate. Socioeconomic factors. As a quantity surveyor, we are cost economists as well in terms of understanding the changes in the population, the demographics, and how they would provide as a potential of a risk to the investment. Political instability as well, regulations and bureaucracy. From an escalation point of view, these would have an impact on the cost of the project from the beginning stage through implementation and handover. The legal implications as well of the project, where these are the encumbrances and encroachments that would be there on the site, including the cost of rectification and compliance thereof. Final one, which Palesa has indicated, the market analysis. The demand versus supplying factors would also have an impact on the costing that would be associated with the development in terms of pricing trends and the competitive position. The loss and profit of this development is something to be taken into consideration should there be other alternative investments that the developer would have gone for, but not necessarily chosen based on the return on investment that would be envisaged. The appraisal at this stage is more complex, sophisticated, and more accurate from the quantity surveyor's point of view in comparison to the initial appraisal. The information is used to also solidify the design, including the cost elements and subsequent profitability of the scheme. The final yes or no for the developer and project financiers alike takes place at this stage, prior to the procuring of a building contract and any major expenditure before it can take place. Again, what are the quantity surveyor's responsibilities within this development appraisal stage? Well, the quantity surveyor is responsible for assessing, collating, and producing cost estimates based on the information that would have been collected. This is used so that this information will also include, but is not limited to, preliminary designs, costs from the engineering team, bulk infrastructure requirements, legal costs, and rates and taxes. In summary, the quantity surveyor has an opportunity, a role, and responsibility to put together the budgeting and cost planning for the development, risk management, value engineering management. This would now be a cost-benefit analysis, the financial management throughout the project life cycle, quality management, contract administration once we have a builder on board, and the overall building life cycle costing of the property. Now, this is now in relation to your operations, which talks to your property and facilities management. Quantity surveyors are the experts in understanding the mandate of all stakeholders and providing the relevant costs and ensuring financial viability and management thereof. In some instances, the quantity surveyor should also be able to calculate the profitability of the development using all these cost-related elements that would have been provided for. Financial planning and continuous management thereof will result in more costs being expended over a longer period, increasing the cost-benefit ratio for the developer. Also, depending on the development financing strategy, a thorough feasibility and viability analysis minimizes the lender's risk and maximizes returns should the financial leverage option be selected. Now, this table is based off a research that was conducted to understand the impact of finances on project and overall developmental successes. It is indicated that the highest ranking factor on any project is always finances. Thus, the importance of having a quantity surveyor that can collate and understand the information at hand before the decision to develop even takes place. In a nutshell, if the costs are not right, everything will go wrong. All of the key aspects of the financial feasibility investigation contribute to the development's viability, implementation, and overall success. The quantity surveyor will combine the knowledge and information acquired to provide the client with a cost-beneficial solution that complies with all the requirements, budget specifications, associated limits, and risks. Graskamp defined feasibility by saying, a real estate project is feasible when the real estate analyst determines that there is a reasonable likelihood of satisfying explicit objectives when a selected course of action is tested for fit to within a context of specific constraints and time-limited resources. In a nutshell, that is what development is all about. It's about an idea, it's about a vision that has to face major constraints, major limits, and the developer having to understand how to make everything work. From a governance point of view, the quantity surveyor's role and responsibility can be summarized into 6 stages as defined by the SAC-QSP. Stage 1 and 2 give a nutshell of what happens in the feasibility and viability stages, where stage 1, being the inception stage, establishes the client's objectives, requirements, and aspirations relating to the development. Stage 2 would be a continuation of stage 1 through the planning of the project, including consideration and reviewing of design concepts, analysis of designs, transformation of data into a concept brief, and simultaneously calculating the preliminary estimated costs, to name a few. Stages 3 to 6 are now looking at the design itself through the construction until handover. Stage 3 is now focused and placed on drawing up a program for the project that includes the approved design concept, sets out the cost plan, evaluates and then analyzes the outline specifications, considers the area schedule, and calculating inter alia the financial viability of the project. Stage 4 is now, if stage 3 is approved, we now get into the drafting and preparation of the construction and procurement documentation in preparation of getting a builder or a main contractor onto the site in order to execute the works from a construction point of view. Stage 5 being the actual construction, which also includes the prolonged financial management of the development as a whole through continuous management and administration. The quantity surveyor will also ensure that effect is given to the completion of the contract works through the signed building agreement, facilitate the preparation of appropriate documentation, and assist in all other tasks and procedures relating thereof, whilst continuously managing the financial aspect of the development and recording the quality progress that is achieved. Quality is also important in this stage because from a quantity surveying point of view, we do not pay for work that is not adequately done. This would have a long-term effect from an operations point of view, your property management point of view, and your facilities management point of view. So for the overall building life cycle and to ensure that the interests of the developer are met, this stage is very important in order to make sure that everything is done right to the specifications and the expected quality so that in the long term, the risks are minimized and mitigated. Stage 6 being the closeout stage from a construction point of view. This is where all the procedures relating to the finalization, completion, and handover of the project are considered and implemented. In conclusion, the aforementioned is a non-exhaustive summary of the services rendered by a quantity surveyor and reflects the extensive involvement in the development process. The services discussed are critical in the assistance that can be lent to a client in the facilitation of a development, from idea, financing, implementation, handover, and operations. The role of a quantity surveyor demonstrates an integrated, comprehensive, and sustainable approach to property development, again, from a time, cost, quality, and operations point of view, which results not only in the successful completion of building projects, but a strengthened reputation of the developer, stronger partnerships, a model of best practice, and maximized returns for the developer. For more information about us as quantity surveyors and what we do and the value proposition that we offer, please visit www.asaqs.co.za for more information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moshe, for bringing a technical and, more importantly, a practical aspect to the event. I'm gonna pass on to Simpiwe, who would like to have a close out before we jump quickly into the Q&A. Simpiwe, over to you.
Thanks, Project Coordinator. I'm conscious of time, but I thought, just to show the people in Pretoria, or we are not lying when we say we empower the youth. I'm going to flight one of our projects because the youth likes to see things that are there. I'm going to flight one of our projects. This project, ladies and gents, is Lane Holdings. It's one of our flagship projects. Just can't navigate the screen now. It's one of our flagship projects in, hey, let me do that. Are you still able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see the video.
Yes, this is one of our flagship projects. We call it a hill and a mountain in Winchester Hills. It's a student accommodation project, 224 beds. The project is owned by a gentleman called Tsepo Lekau and Elaine Pasha, who are both 31. I've invited Tsepo to the webinar, and I actually appreciate if you would just say a few words for the project. This project was funded at a total project cost of 52 million rand. So, it's possible. It's not impossible, it's possible. But I see Tsepo's just disappeared here, so I don't think he's gonna respond. But I just thought it's important to just show the guys, this is the type of projects we are working on. 31-year-olds are getting funding for this, or let me rather say youth, let me not generalize the age. So people are getting funding for this type of stuff. Just wanna show when the project is complete, this is what we're looking at. 224 beds to service UJ in Soweto campus. All right, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Simpiwe. It's always nice to see something tangible, something real. Like you say, the youth love aesthetics. So here's Tsepo. Do you want to give it a go? Do you want to say something, Tsepo?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. I just wanted to correct him here. It's going to be 264 beds. And yeah, it's in Winchester. Then I just want to say to the youth, like that are interested in the property sector, that your dreams are valid. Like it is possible. It just takes a lot of dedication and commitment. It's not an easy journey, but it is attainable. So I just want to encourage everyone who's watching now that you should, like, even this platform is a good platform for like young people with the sharing of information. And our project as well is one of those that's going to be leveling the playing field. So we encourage young people to enter the property sector. It is a very viable business. Yeah, that's all I want to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tsepo. And I think that highlights the GPF's hunger and want to attract a pipeline of entrepreneurs from our membership, from the youth. And so I hope that at the very least, this event was educational, but hopefully it triggers you guys to apply to the GPF and get the ball rolling. Without further ado, we'll jump into a few questions I think we've highlighted here. The first one I think we'll just start off with is a question for Simpiwe, which asks, who appoints the professional team, the contractor? Do you guys have recommendations, or do you choose yourself for the client?
Thanks, project coordinator. So the GPF will handhold the client, but in a sense, we promote the development of developers. So we want you at the end of the day to be an established developer. So in that sense, we let you, the entrepreneur, choose the professionals and the contractor, but we do, however, do a vetting on them. If they don't meet our minimum requirements, then we will ask you to change the contractor or appoint another consultant. Thanks.
Sorry, I also wanted to answer another question. I guess that was for me, who asked, will this recording be available after this? Yes, it will be on Facebook, on YouTube, on YIPA's accounts on those different platforms, and also on YIPA's website. Yeah, so that answers that question. Sorry about that, guys. Also, Simpiwe, there was a question that related to the 10% equity portion that you guys require the entrepreneur to bring. Can land be that 10%, or does it, that's the question. Can the land be that portion that accounts for that 10%?
Thanks. I think that's a very important question, and I appreciate the attendees for asking that question. Your equity can be anything. So anything you've paid towards the development, could be land, unencumbered cash, payments towards specialist costs, any project-related cost that you have incurred can be used towards equity. We will obviously have to verify it. So we have an equity verification process that we undertake just to ensure that you are not taking us for a ride. But yes, in simple English, you can use land towards your equity.
Thank you, Simpiwe. The following question is to Upalesa. It asks, what do you guys use, or what can you use the loan for? Are there limitations, or is it anything related to the development?
So basically the loan would be used for the development. So it can include, so basically we can cover the acquisition cost as well. So your total project cost can include the cost of acquisition for the land.
I think that answers the question from the particular attendee. Then another one that's also directed for you, Balesa. It asks about the turnaround time of an application. How long should you expect it to take?
So we've got a 3 to 6 months turnaround time, obviously depending on the readiness of the project. Mm-hmm. And obviously it also depends on when we have our settings, because currently, because of the pandemic, we are currently working from home. So we yet to see when we go back to the office if everything can go back to normal. But normally we've got a 3 months turnaround time period, but we've extended it to 3 to 6 months. So between 3 and 6 months.
And also on the point of applications, how detrimental is having that audited financial, those audited financials in the case of maybe you're a new company or yes?
So basically for the new companies, the audited financials are not really relevant because you don't have a track record. Mm. So we wouldn't stress on those. But if let's say you were applying for our rental program, rental housing fund, then we would need your audited financials because that program is mainly for your more established developers. So they've got a track record in the property industry. So when I was going through the required documents, it was just a generic that applies for all our programs.
And then lastly, for you, Balesa, do you guys have a maximum number of projects that can be awarded to one client, and also what is the max project value you're willing to finance, or the biggest amount you're willing to loan?
So we look at the maximum, the minimum in terms of the number of units. So anything above 15 units for rental and EPF, we can look into that. And then anything above 50 beds for student accommodation, we can look at that project. And then in terms of the GPF exposure, we can only go up until, I think, 30 million for each project. So yeah, that's basically the maximum, but that's just the GPF portion. It's not the entire.
The project value.
Yes.
And do you guys have a maximum number of times I can come back and
apply? Sorry, so you would need like a check record of obviously repaying a loan that you have already with us. So you can't submit 2 projects at the same time. You would need to submit one and then complete that one, then build a repayment track record, then we can start looking at your second project.
Thank you, Balesa. I would also like to ask Umushe a question to do with getting a hold of a QS or even the whole professional team. Where can you get a hold of these people? Just watch you muted yourself there.
My apologies. So all the professional team members are part of associations and councils, which has a database of all, number one, registered individuals, and number two, registered companies. So I believe that in terms of innovation or incubation hubs as well, entrepreneurs would need to be in those spaces to find out from a built environment point of view who the key players are and who other young entrepreneurs are. But a simple Google search in terms of these councils should be able to lead them to get the information that is required. Over and above that, there is the Council of the Built Environment that also has a holistic view from an engineering, quantity surveying, architectural, etc. point of view, who your registered businesses are. And that would be a good starting point in order for them to get reputable companies that would be able to assist them with the development endeavors that would be undertaken.
I understand. I see. I would like to also put a question to you that asks, how much would you expect to pay towards this professional team or professional services in the development?
So all the professionals are regulated. There is a standard fee scale for the relevant disciplines. With us, quantity surveys, it's a guideline that indicates, from a competitive pricing or market-related pricing point of view, what you would expect the minimum to be. But just on that topic, a lot of young entrepreneurs in particular generally discouraged because not a lot of them have the startup capital that would be required in order to pay the professionals from the onset of the inception of the project. So now this would now relate back to the type of business model that an entrepreneur has from a financing point of view. For example, bootstrapping or crowdfunding, those are options that one needs to look at in terms of how to put together the startup capital to these developments. A lot of entrepreneurs that I know of also do a lot of bankrolling where they, with whatever income, especially within this hustling era that comes into the business, they try to fund the work themselves. Where that fails as well, we're sitting with a market that's saturated and where you have a lot of young, hungry business people that would be willing to put above everything or above profits, that will be looking at formulating relationships rather than increasing profits overnight. So that's an option where entrepreneurs can look at requesting services in the beginning on a pro bono basis. And now once the funding can be confirmed and the project can go ahead, you know that already there is some guarantee that whatever outstanding fees would be paid in the long term. But again, as a startup, from a point of view of not being discouraged, there are different ways, there are different models that can be taken into consideration in ensuring that whoever needs to be paid gets paid.
Thank you. That's an excellent answer. And I think that's a great note to end the event on. I'm just thinking time-wise. It's been a pleasure. I want to give you guys an opportunity to say or share anything else you have want to share. If not, I'll close the event off.
No, just wanted to say thanks, Project Director, to YIPA, the attendees. We hope this has really been beneficial to the attendees, and we've created a way for them to know how to access the funding, which is the most important thing. So we hope to see a lot of applications coming through on our side. Yeah, we can't wait. Can't wait to start looking at your deals. Thanks.
Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure also from my side. It's been very informative. It's always nice to also see examples like Simpiwe that you shared with us, that it's happening, ongoing, even in such a time as we're living through now, that as Balesa puts it, as Moshe put it, we still hustle. So thank you guys. I'll end the event now. It's been a pleasure. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, and thank you all.
Good night.